Today I'm going to go ahead and go over the Move plugin for OBS Studio. This is one of my favorite plugins. In fact, it's probably the main plugin I use for my stream because it allows you to make things visually interesting without having to rely on really flashy overlays that are probably way too expensive. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the Move plugin and make sure that you get stuff moving like you want it to, how you can trigger these things when you want them to, either with a hotkey or really with my favorite tool, Streamer.bot. By the end of this video, you should have the knowledge to be able to start creating your stream the way you want it to be when it comes to moving things across the screen. Now, one of the big reasons why people ask me this question is because of the screens that move behind me. Because I have stuff that is moving on the screen, that there is visual appeal happening behind me while I'm talking to chat. And so there's always at least something kind of catching their attention, maybe drawing them to an advertisement like I have right here, for something that I'm a part of. I have a lot of different uses for it, but I also am then able to move myself and move my main screen here where my chat can see it. So here in OBS Studio, it's very blank because I wanted to make sure that it was clean and easy for you to see. So the first thing, naturally, you want to have this installed. And if you have not installed OBS plugins before, check out my video on OBS plugins, and that'll help you understand how to install them. Now, the first common mistake people will make with this is when you go into filters on the thing you're wanting to move, the problem you're going to encounter is if I was to go to move source, which is typically what we want to use, it's going to come up and say the filter only works on scenes and groups. Now, the reason why this is because if you apply it to the source in one scene and then you move to another scene, you could potentially wind up moving your camera in one scene that isn't supposed to move anywhere and move it in different areas. This is the reason why those filters are applied only onto the actual scenes rather than the sources themselves. Let me remove that. So here on the scene, we right click, hit filters, and then we have a blank panel here. And all we have to do is hit the plus sign, move source. Now, when you go to set up a move source, you need to know that you're not going to be doing just one. You're actually going to have at least two in order for this to work. So I'm going to label this camera position number 1. Now here, I can choose whatever source would be in here, but right now we only have the camera. A start delay, if you want to make sure that it takes time for it to start because maybe something else is happening, or maybe you're chaining things together, you can actually create a delay here if you want to. The custom duration, this is how long you want the movement to take. Let's go ahead and say we want it to take 2 seconds. End delay, and that's if you're chaining things together. If you don't want to have it chained together, you don't have to worry about it, but you can actually do an end delay and then make it wait to end, and then it'll move on to the next thing. Easing, you can do no easing, so it's a straight line, or you can do ease in, ease out, but typically a lot of people like to do the ease in and out. Easing function, it kind of affects how it moves. Can't really see too much of a difference. If you play around with it enough, you might see the difference. But this is where everything's going to come down to, is right down here on transform. So here right now, this is the main spot of where my camera sits. If I was to hit get transform, it's the same spot it currently is. Now, if I go ahead and I shrink this down, let's say I'm moving me to the top left. This is where I want to be. Well, then when I hit get transform on it, it's now going to change where things are. So really it says I haven't changed the position. I'm still in 0, 0, but my scale has decreased. So you're probably wondering, well, you didn't actually move anything. It's still 0, 0. There's a reason, and this is something that often winds up getting me in trouble, and I have to do something at least twice because I forget about it. The positional alignment is typically defaulted to the top left, meaning the top left corner of that source is going to be where everything basically draws from. So if I need to make that change, I can just right click over on the camera, go to the transform properties, hit edit transform. Right now it says top left. If I come down here and do center, well, now you see that I've moved just by doing that. And that's because now where that point is, where OBS puts the image or the source, has shifted. So that's now the center spot where everything kind of draws from. So if I go in here now and I correct it back down to where I was, and then I do get transform, now you'll see that my positioning has changed. It's now X346 and Y of 194. But in order to make a move happen, we need to have 2 of these filters. So we're going to add another move source. I'm going to call this camera position 2 because this will be the position I want to move to. So I can move the window out of the way and actually just drag this wherever I want. And for this, I'm going to make it the size of our canvas. So basically making me full screen. Now to make this work, all I have to do is, since I have this here, I just come down, hit Get Transform again, and you're going to see that it changes all the values here. So now they're actually different from position 1. So with these 2 positions now, all I have to do is then click an eyeball to make it move. And so now here I am in camera position 1, and we're going to click to camera position 2. It was set at 300 milliseconds, so it goes really fast. But that's just a simple way that you can make things grow and change and move around the screen. Now, if you wanted to do something like rotating this, there's actually a pretty easy way if you wanted to do it like something like an easy spin. Let's go ahead and take camera position 1 and make it the same as camera position 2, right? So I did the Get Transform. These are now the same. Well, if you come down here to the ROT, standing for rotation, and you just put the value 360 in there, well, if we go to camera position 1, we're exactly where we're supposed to be. Camera position 2, instead of 5 seconds, we'll do 3 seconds. So here's camera position 2. So that's how you can easily just flip yourself upside down. Then you just need to go back to camera 1 to go the other way. A simple little effect, and honestly, you can plug that in with a command, and your chat has fun for a long time with it. So let me show you, if you don't want to tie this to something that'll automate a lot of different things. If you just wanted to tie this to a hotkey to make it happen, and you do it on your own, not hard. So just remember what you named your camera positions. You'll go down to the settings, then you're going to go down to hotkeys. So here it is on the scene that we applied it to. We have camera position 1, which is the filter we made, camera position 2. Right now, I'm just going to set up a hotkey of 1 and a hotkey of 2. Now I'm going to hit apply. Now if I hit OK, all right, so if I hit the number 2 on my keyboard, I now get to spin. If I hit number 1 on the keyboard, I get to go back to where I was. So now I can flip through these camera positions any way I want to with just using my keyboard. Can be really interesting if you decide to like type and set a different camera position for every single part of a keyboard. I'd really love to see what that would look like if somebody did that. I'm not doing it. But there's also another thing you can do where if we're in camera position 1, if you come over to this panel and you scroll all the way to the bottom, here you have actions that are down here. Now this, you can do a simultaneous move. So if you have where you have different cameras or different sources and you want them all to trigger at the same time, you can chain them together and have multiple things move at one time, only having to have one hotkey tied to it. But what I like to use is next move. And so next move, when the camera position 1 is over, it'll immediately trigger camera 2. We do camera 1, camera 2. So that gives you the option to chain multiple movements back to back. In fact, I actually did this once with a redeem I had a while ago where if somebody triggered it, it would go through over 100 different movements of my camera to try and match Mario. It was a really cool idea. It's just really hard to line up milliseconds and camera frames because camera frames are 60 frames per second and milliseconds is done in hundreds. So yeah, that didn't work out well for me. Math. But in fact, this is exactly what winds up happening with the screens that I have on OBS Studio is you see that I have a gigantic list of different positions that each of those screens is going to go in. And what I've done is then I have made sure that there is simultaneous move and next move, and I have tied them all together. So when one moves, the next moves. And I've actually set it up into a loop where here the featured one will show, it'll be there for so long, then it's going to move to the background feature one, then it'll move to its second position but in the back, then it'll go back to featured. So it actually winds up moving in a loop, and all three of those screens are tied together so they all move at the same time. So that is just one way that you can take the Move plugin and create something without really needing anything additional with it. I will say that if you leave the Move plugin active and continuously running, it will draw resources from from your PC that it may need for other things. And that is the reason why I use something like Streamer.bot to control a lot of this. So for instance, with that, anytime I switch to that chat, it will go ahead and go through and make sure that the two screens that usually I hide if we're not on that chatting screen, those become visible first thing. Then we change to that chatting scene. And then we make sure that we set the filter, we set the camera position filter, we set all these different filters that control it. And then I've got a few other things. But basically, anytime I change to that scene, that's what winds up happening. Now, I control this with my Stream Deck, again, with Streamer.bot. So let's go ahead and take what we built here with our spin, and let's go ahead and just set that up in Streamer.bot. So I have here Streamer.bot. This is the home. This is where everything starts. You're going to start with actions, and you would just come to where this actions panel is. This is basically where you just hold a bunch of different things that you can trigger. So I'm just going to call this flip camera. I'm going to put this in my test group, and we'll just hit OK. So what I need to do then is over here in the sub actions, I would right click, hit add, go to OBS Studio because that's what we want to control. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to where it says scenes, and I'm going to go to set scene filter state because that's what we are controlling. Over here is a filter, and this is what we're aiming for, a filter on a scene. And so because this is connected, and if you have never connected Streamer.bot, I do have videos kind of going over this that you are free to check out, and hopefully I pop that into the corner for you to go look at. But here we have the scene that we're in. If there was a different scene, we'd choose it from here. The filter we want to enable, we're going to go ahead and say camera filter 1, and the state is visible because if you look at this, the eyeball means that it's visible. The closed eyeball means that it is not visible. So here we're going to do visible, and we're going to hit OK. Now we've already tied it together in here, so we could actually just leave it as is. And let's say we wanted to add a trigger. We'll do it anytime somebody sends bits, which is a cheer. So I'm not even going to put a minimum or maximum value on this. I'm just going to say anytime somebody sends bits. So let's say somebody sends bits then with that trigger. So I'm going to do the simulate. So that way it simulates somebody giving me bits. Simulate. Oh, somebody gave me bits. I go crazy. And that's a way I can automate it. I don't have to do anything. I've set up the move filters, and I now have this trigger that anytime somebody would send me bits, voila, I spin. And it's something simple like that that can make a huge difference in your engagement with your viewers. Now, alternatively, the way we can do this, if I go in here into the filters and we come down here and we take off the next move. So now they are now individual. I am clicking them individually on my own. Okay, well then what we can do in here, we still want to do the spin effect just like we did. Well, now we can do something where we can add and we can put in a delay. We can actually like program this in ourselves. So let's say we wanted to wait about 4 seconds before the next filter would get triggered. So we're going to add OBS Studio, go down to scenes, get set scene filter state. And now we're going to get position 2. We want it visible. Voila. So now we've got where the first one will be done. Then we're going to wait 4 seconds, and then we're going to do the second one. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and simulate again. So here we go. I spin. And there we go. So this is a way that you can also approach this. So there's different ways you can approach this. However, when it comes to the ways that you do this, I do have some things that I do want to at least give you some knowledge on. So when it comes to setting up in just Streamer.bot and you are listing out every single action in Streamer.bot, that gives you a lot of control in one space, and you don't have to just dig through filter after filter and constantly work with those and maybe accidentally hitting something that messes stuff up entirely. That does happen. Streamer.bot makes it at least self-contained to where it's all listed out in front of you. You know what's going to happen via that list. You can see it happening. That's one of the greatest things that I love about that. The drawback, though, is the fact that Streamer.bot is going to be constantly sending messages then to OBS Studio. So sometimes when you have something that's a little more bogged down and has a lot of different things going on with it, this is not going to be the right approach because Streamer.bot's going to be trying to shove a lot of information down a very small pipe. And with that, OBS may miss a bunch of stuff. If you're going to set it up in Streamer.bot and use Streamer.bot as the main way of communicating and driving everything, that's best for smaller contained actions similar to the one we just made, where it is easy to just say, hey, I just need you to flip me once, then flip me back over. That Streamer.bot can handle, and OBS is perfectly fine with. If you were to make something where it's like the Mario redeem I did, where we had to have Mario jump up and down a whole bunch of times, yeah, that sometimes those jumps didn't make it because that information trying to go through from Streamer.bot to OBS sometimes didn't make it. And so that's one of the things you have to balance when you're working with these things. That's why I really loved the idea of using the Move plugin to then chain different movements and using the start delay and end delay to manage all that. This way, all I have to do is say, hey, Streamer.bot, when this goes off, send that initial first enable, get that one filter going, and then OBS takes care of the rest. That is great when you're doing bigger movements, more complex things. Again, the issue with that is you're going to get kind of lost because the more you build into it, the harder it is to figure out what everything's doing. And so those two different approaches really kind of take more a how do you work best, what is going to be the easiest for you to manage. But no matter how you go, there are so many different things you can create just simply by moving something on a screen. It doesn't even have to be your camera. I move all sorts of different things. I move video files, I move images, I move browser sources, I move almost anything. Now, this may not have been the most exciting video in the world, but it's something to at least get you going where you need to go. And if you need any help, I'm always available for questions. You can ask down in the comments. You can ask in my Discord server. I don't care. Ask me questions. I love being asked questions. You can even catch me live on stream and I'll answer questions. I'll stop what I'm doing usually and answer questions. I like to make sure that you guys have the information available to you so you can create your stream the way you've actually wanted it to be. You don't have to pay money for it. So I hope you enjoyed, hope it's helpful, and I hope to see you, on my next video. Have a good one.